You know, if you're in a scenario where you are in public with no pants, right? Like that is a more legitimate thing where you could say, yeah, there's a reason for that.
A waking imagination could potentially come true and make you think, oh, gee, I can predict the future.
Given the parallels between hallucination and dreaming, what if the same effect could be achieved using lucid dreaming?
And I look over at the closet in the corner of the room, and there's this bluish light emanating from it, and the doors start like rattling like they're trying to open.
Okay, welcome to yet another kitchen sink microscopy. I'm Eric Rosenblatt, and we'd really love it if you'd like and share this video and subscribe to the channel. It'll help a lot.
Yeah, and I'm Casey Rochford, and welcome to Season 2. We're having a great time. It's been over a year. We got a lot done. And if you'd
Time
like
for celebration.
you'd like to check out some of our other material, we have ksmvidcast.com available for you to take a look at. And our music is available now on iTunes and Spotify and all that good stuff. So head on over to those and find us. So, what do you want to talk about for the first outing of Season 2?
Whew. Well, I mean, we could talk about almost anything, but I think let's go something kind of light. You know, I had this like really weird dream last night, and I was kind of thinking about it today and everything, and I thought it would be a really cool topic of conversation to deep sink dive into lucid dreaming.
Yeah. I've heard a lot about it. I haven't looked into it a whole lot, but that's basically where you're just kind of aware that you're dreaming, right? Or
Yeah, you're more than depending. You can be aware, but you can also, in some situations, control your dream, like
okay.
dictate what happens and things like that.
Isn't that like transcendental meditation or something? Or
I think
I'm mixing those up?
it's a little bit different. Yeah, lucid dreaming specifically revolves around dreams and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know. With me, like if I remember actually having a dream, I think I'm always pretty much aware that it is a dream. But I don't know if that's the case for everybody. But are some people more prone to it than others?
Well, so if you're talking about just the memory of a dream, right? Not the actual experience of dreaming.
Well, no, both.
Okay.
I have distinct memories of the dream wherein I'm like, oh, this is a dream, but I keep dreaming.
Yeah.
Like that moment of realization. Like maybe it's not through the whole dream, but at some point I'm like, oh, this is a little too bizarre to be reality. I'm dreaming.
Well, yeah, and that's pretty close to the I guess base level side of lucid dreaming, that you are aware of what's going on. And most people don't do that. It actually, in a lot of cases, takes a conscious effort to achieve that kind of state. I mean, it's different to be aware versus being able to actually take control of the dream and turn it into what you want it to be, or something like that, which lucid dreaming, that's a component of it.
I don't know if I've quite done that to like any full degree. Like Not to the point where it's like a holodeck or something where, I can program it exactly how I want it to go or something, but more like um, I make some decisions or whatever, and I don't know if that's necessarily me consciously controlling it or if that's just I don't know, like a portion of the dream. You know what I mean? Like it's not like a dream doesn't necessarily have to be just visual imagery or whatever. It could also be thought patterns.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I guess it would be difficult to distinguish between those two in that sort of situation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, like me, I'm a huge, uh, I get, I'm a practitioner of lucid dreaming, let's say.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and it all started because I used to have these really, really horrible nightmares that would be out of control, and I couldn't do anything about it. And um, the weird dreams with creatures or something that are chasing you, and suddenly you can't move, and your legs are like molasses. And I remember one where I was down in a basement and I was trying to get out, and my legs were like just like these rubber stalks coming off of me, and I had to drag myself up the railing of the stairs to get out of the basement. But anyway, I started digging into dreams. This is long. I was probably in like middle school or something like that. But I started looking into dreams and where they come from and stuff like that, and how they work. And I discovered lucid dreaming and got really, really interested in it. And I gotta say, it's a fun experience.
I I have had um like situations where I guess you'd call it a nightmare or something where like I'm attacked, taken by surprise or something, and the fight or flight kicks in, and I try to like throw a punch or something, but I've got the sleep paralysis thing, and that like translates into the dream. Like I can't move my arms or whatever, and it's like, is that lucid or is that more like a shallower type of dream where you're somewhat awake?
Yeah, I think it's more that sort of situation is more like where the real world is kind of encroaching into the dream,
Yeah.
which does kind of start to cross that line, that threshold between uh, regular deep dreaming and lucid dreaming. But lucid dreaming is definitely a more um, a state of continuous awareness that the dream is there, and the ability to, once you know it's a dream, you can actually just take control of it within some sort of a framework. Obviously there's limitations because it's a dream, so things don't always work out the way that you'd want them to, but you can kind of control things. Like for instance, I a lot of situations, I used to have creatures chasing me or something like that, and I pull out a gun and it would just be a squirt gun or something like that, or yeah, I'd get cornered or whatever. And now I'm able to make the guns in my dreams actually function, and if something's chasing me, I can actually swim through the air, which is a lot of fun. Or levitate or something. It's really cool.
Yeah. I I tell you what, the freakiest dream I've ever had was a fever dream.
Ooh,
And
those are terrible.
that
Oh,
was the complete opposite where I had zero control and I was locked between awake and dreaming, and I had like this um, knowledge that I could not wake up until I got through a maze.
oh, Jesus.
And I looked to my left and my right, and all around, I could see my bedroom all around. I could watch the clock tick by minute, but my arms were covered with tree roots, and I couldn't get up, and I couldn't wake up
Oh,
fully
wow.
until I got through this maze. And like, I don't know how long it took me, but I was like, probably at least an hour until I completed the maze and woke up and like the tree roots disappeared and everything. And I was still having a fever, but like at least I was finally awake and I like drink water and
Whew. Yeah. Oh, the fever dreams are terrible.
yeah.
that makes me think of something. Have you ever had this happen? Because this happens to me almost all the time when I'm sick or something. I'm sleeping and dreaming, especially in that kind of like between state kind of thing. Like I feel I'm heavily aware of my body, but it feels like things are disproportionate. Like my tongue is too thick, or my hands are all like puffy or something, and then it goes back to normal. Have you ever? It kind of like oscillates between normalcy and this weird inflated bulging feeling. I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
I mean, yeah, to some extent. Maybe not as accentuated as that, but I I also can't feel much of my body thanks to the cancer. So
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of this is in your head. I don't know that you're actually feeling your body necessarily. It's
Mhm.
some kind of psychological thing.
it's a sense. You know, there's way more than five senses, and that awareness of your body. I think it's a form of proprioception, if I'm not mistaken. That's an actual like sense that
That's kind of the sense where you know where your limbs or and things are in
visually, or
three-dimensional space.
yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's what, tells you, okay, like I know I've got like a box over here and I don't have to look for it. I can just like feel around until I like land on it and have a pretty good idea of where it is, like spatially. That sort of thing. It's like I don't have to see my arm to know where I'm aiming it, you know.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think to some degree, like that falls under that category, like just being aware that, maybe your foot doesn't feel quite right or whatever.
Yeah. Well, and of course, if you're sick, you have a fever and stuff, things are all whacked out anyway, your senses and things.
Yeah.
So kind of makes sense. But definitely you have very weird dreams. I'd like to hear people's weird, excuse me, weird dreams in the comments. That would be really cool.
Oh yeah.
I'm all about that. I've had so many weird dreams, like hyper vivid dreams, um, which maybe we can go into that a little bit later. Um,
I used to have uh pretty interesting control over my dreams as a kid, now that I think about it, because I had this dream I was being chased by a monster. I don't know, I was like 5-ish, somewhere in that age range. Old enough to, like watch Scooby-Doo cartoons and understand what's going on and whatnot. But anyway, I was being chased by this monster in my dream, and it was almost time to get up, internal clock. That was when the alarm's about to go off or whatnot. And all of a sudden in my dream, it just says to be continued. And I wake up, like my alarm goes off and I wake up. So I was like, oh, that was interesting way to end a dream. And then, like the next night I go to bed and it picks right up where it left off. I'm like being chased by this monster again, like same spot I was at and everything. Like, so weird.
That's really bizarre. Actually, yeah, that made me think about
Who has a
continuing,
cliffhanger dream?
especially the next day. That's really
Mhm.
bizarre. Because I've been able to go like I've had a really cool dream, and I woke up and I was like, oh wait, I want to go back into that and experience it again, and I've been able to do that. Um, but the next day, that's kind of unusual.
Yeah.
It
I
does
mean,
definitely. Oh, go ahead.
well, I mean, I think to some degree we influence what we dream about quite heavily by what we're preoccupied with. So I probably had that seed planted of the to be continued, thought about it all day, thought about it before I went to bed, and then it probably just picked right up.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense because you absolutely. In fact, lucid dreaming, one of the techniques to kind of achieve that state is kind of a meditation on the idea of lucid dreaming before you go to sleep, because what you're thinking about before definitely influences what you're going to dream about.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, people put all kinds of woo things into dreams, and I don't necessarily know that that really
Yeah, like there's a million, like I've looked at like dream interpretations, and everything's different from website to website. Like a blue car means that you're dissatisfied with your lover, and then you go to the next web page, a blue car means you want ice cream. Like,
yeah, well, and I think things that are so simple like that, like a particular object. Oh, if you see a watch in your dream, or you see a horse in your dream, it means this. No, no, no. But certain things do have meaning, but it's like a much more complex sense. It has more to do with like the sort of scenario that you're in. If you're in a scenario where you are in public with no pants, right? Like that is a more legitimate uh, thing where you could say, yeah, there's a reason for that. Or the dreams where you're being chased by something, they those kinds of things do have meaning.
yeah,
But a simple object, if you see a rubber ball in a dream, that doesn't mean shit. Um, you
yeah,
know.
because like when the way you discern reality from dream is the level of detail. And um, like if I look around my room, I can see an astonishing amount of detail, like the texture of the wall and the cork board in front of me, like, but in a dream, you might have a lot of detail on one particular object. And, that object obviously might carry a lot of meaning to you personally or subconsciously or whatever. I don't think it's like, a blanket meaning for every person necessarily. That's why I think all those things are generally kind of in the woo category. But
Yeah, yeah.
like if you and your therapist like pour over the details of the dream and in context of your own life and experiences, I'm sure you probably can find some subconscious meanings in
Sure, sure. And that goes back to like symbolism and stuff, how it's subjective. It's a personal thing.
those.
Not every thing means the same thing to everyone.
Yeah.
If I don't know, the blue car always meant the same thing to everybody, then it would be, yeah, then those dream interpretations would be spot on. But those things don't mean the same to everyone. So I
Now, what
think,
about some people think that you can sometimes see the future in your dreams, or like people say, uh, such and such happened and I dreamed about it like the day or the week before, and like, do you think if they were capable of lucid dreaming that they could control the future?
well, you're talking about premonition. And I do kind of, I mean, I'm skeptical, but I feel like it's possible in some way, and you are in a completely different state of mind when you're dreaming. Some of those things I think are in some way plausible, but not as concrete as the psychics would have you believe. I think it's a lot more subtle than that. And
No,
I
this
think, of course, if you could control your dreams, then you're losing all of the information that's coming your way. You're actually dictating what it is, so you're not really able to predict the future.
well, I think you're dictating what it is no matter what, because it's I mean, a dream is a creation of your subconscious and your experiences and your expectations, and it's those expectations, I think, that construct these dreams, or even like uh, a waking imagination could potentially come true and make you think, oh gee, I can predict the future. I went through that phase as a teenager, actually. Like I had a pretty startlingly accurate um, track record of knowing when things would happen. But I mean, all I was doing is using like inductive reasoning and things like that, and putting together, rational outcomes based on, I mean, not to ruin it for everyone, but
Well, and that's not to say there isn't a possibility that there's some other thing, but for
right.
sure,
Well,
yeah.
I'm open to that possibility, but there is a far more like rational and plausible explanation.
Especially for the majority of situations,
Hmm.
yeah. And exactly, if you have the more information you have, the more accurate a prediction of the future you can make. And so if you're observant, you can predict the future quite accurately, in
Yeah.
fact. Though, yeah, I don't know. Dreams, to me, dreams are kind of like hallucinations. It does come from within your mind. Maybe the brain has some sort of, I don't know, maybe we're like four-dimensional beings and we could possibly tap into something in the ether, I guess, however you want to phrase it. But I don't think it's as perfect a connection as a lot of people who want to sell you books and products would tell you.
Yeah. I speaking of hallucinations, I do think they are tied pretty closely together. And have you ever had like a waking hallucination? Like I talked a little bit about the fever dream that I had, but I know I've got a couple other examples. But do you have any stories along that line of?
Oh, I'll bet you have some for when you were going through cancer treatment. But
Oh
well,
yeah,
so yeah, I haven't really had too much. I mean, I'm a pretty solidly grounded, mentally grounded kind of person. So it doesn't happen very often unless I'm sick. Then some weird stuff, or maybe dehydrated or low blood sugar or something. Then weird things start to happen. Mostly it's auditory and peripheral visual hallucinations where you see something like ducking around the corner and you're like, what the, that kind of thing. Other than in altered states of mind, like meditative states or something like that I haven't really had anything in a waking state
Okay.
happen.
I mean, I haven't had one that wasn't in some way or another drug induced. And I'm bringing this up because the similarity between dreaming and hallucination makes me wonder, like people that do suffer from hallucinations, like from schizophrenia, for instance, might there be a way for them to practice a waking lucid dream situation where they take control of the hallucination and keep it under wraps? Or maybe I'm not coming up with something new here. Maybe that's already a thing, but I'm just kind of wondering out loud, like, would that be possible? Because that would be nice.
It totally could be. And I mean, if it isn't being used therapeutically, it probably should be, because I think the same mechanism that gives you dreams also gives you hallucinations to some extent.
Yeah.
Like obviously, drug induced states like LSD and mushrooms and peyote and things like that, you have different things at play. But I think it's still tapping into the same corners of the brain.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe that would be a great way for people who suffer from involuntary hallucination that they might be able to kind of take control of it.
Yeah.
I would hope so, because that sounds like a terrible, terrible place to be.
Oh yeah. Like you have no control over the situation whatsoever. I mean, if it's a benign hallucination, like I'm sure a lot of people on mushrooms are, for the most part, benign from what I hear. I've never tried them, but because I I don't want anything to do with hallucinogens really. After my experiences, just the dark corners of my mind or places I don't want to be. But when I was in the hospital for my transplant for the cancer, I obviously had a lot of nausea, and they gave me a scopolamine patch behind the ear, and that is a motion sickness drug.
Oh yeah, okay.
So this is a PSA. If you use scopolamine patches for motion sickness, take them off after a while. They forgot it was there. It was on there for like 3 days, and
Oh God.
all of a sudden I'm sitting there in bed with the lights off, and I'm watching some Red Dwarf, and I look over at the closet in the corner of the room, and there's this bluish light emanating from it, and the doors start like rattling like they're trying to open, and I hear this voice, and it was my mucus, because I was like overproducing mucus,
Hmm.
and it was really gross, and I was vomiting like every half hour and shitting my brains out,
Hmm.
and my mucus was talking to me, and it told me it was trying to kill me, which it
Jeez.
was.
Yeah.
um, I'll direct people to the uh, episode where we talked about my cancer experience and my book and stuff. But um, I I quickly stood up and tried to escape into my bathroom. I grabbed the tree of medications, I rolled it into the bathroom, shut the door, sat on the toilet. It was pitch black in there, so I flipped the light on, and I started to feel better. And then the voice was there saying, "You can't escape me in here." And I was freaking out. Like, and this patch is still on me. It's the middle of the night. I'm going through this all night. And the next morning, I was at a teaching hospital, UW Medicine. So I had like 10 doctors in the room at any given time. Just like, imagine you've just been hallucinating, you're almost dead, and you have limited capability of speaking because of all this mucus. And there's 10 doctors like forming a wall around your bed, and they're like rapid fire asking me questions like, were the voices telling you to hurt yourself or anyone else? And I just burst out crying. Like, it was like one of the only times in my adult life I've just like lost it and started crying, because I didn't know what the hell was going on. Like,
Well, that's a super intense situation. That's like, whew, man,
mhm.
wow.
And so finally, one of them notices the patch, gets it off, and everything was fine after that. But holy crap,
Whoa.
so I mean, I was in my 20s then, right? And I didn't try marijuana until I was like 31 or something.
Mm-hmm.
One of the times I did try it, I wound up hallucinating severely, to the point where I thought I was back in the hospital and that I was dying of cancer. And I
Jesus.
was freaking out. I was vomiting. I was like crying and saying I didn't want to die. And like my girlfriend at the time, like, had no idea what to do. She didn't really have the understanding that marijuana is a mild hallucinogen, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're prone to hallucinations, they can very easily trigger them. Marijuana
True.
can trigger them. So uh, that was another. I mean, that's one good reason I don't do it anymore.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and the what we were saying about kind of what you go into your dreams thinking about. The same goes for hallucinogens and hallucinations. That your state of mind, your expectations, kind of
Yeah,
dictates how that's going to go.
that's why my
So if
mucus was
you're,
trying to kill me.
yeah, yeah, if you're in a dark place, you probably don't want to go there,
Yeah,
um, unless you have a very good control over your mind.
yeah.
Um,
Now there's research though that I want to keep an eye on, because it's fairly fresh. But you maybe you've heard of this. People are starting to use psilocybin or psilocybin, or however you pronounce that. But people are using mushrooms to treat depression.
yeah, yeah. Oh, I've heard it. I've been following that too.
So
Yeah.
these are hallucinogens being used to treat people in very dark places. And I, for one, feel like that's a bad idea. But if it's working, I guess it's working,
Well, here's the thing: those kinds of those are clinical situations. They're not just like consuming mushrooms at a party or something like that. There's doctors, there's experts, there's people around to help them guide them through the experience, for with a positive goal.
Hmm.
A lot of research was done with MDMA back in the day with promising results. Unfortunately, that's been squashed for the time being. But yeah, I, I, I think that's a good direction to go. It's kind of those kinds of things tend to take you outside yourself, a little bit like meditation or hypnosis or something like that. That you step outside yourself and can look at yourself in a different way, and I think that's beneficial for therapeutic reasons.
Yeah, I read this book by Sam Harris called Waking Up. I think I've mentioned that book before, but
Mhm.
he's a big advocate for using hallucinogens to kind of tap into yourself and like
Yeah.
your inner self, like your true self, um, to examine your emotional state and stuff like that. And I'll admit it was an enticing idea. I still feel like trigger shy about it though, just because of my experiences. But
That that's understandable, especially with substances like LSD that can affect you for a very long time.
mhm.
And you got me thinking, actually. Given the parallels between hallucination and dreaming, what if the same effect could be achieved using lucid dreaming, where you could kind of use dreams and the experiences to sort of explore different ideas and things? I mean, because
Huh.
the source of your dreams are usually your concerns and hopes and fears and things, stuff that you're thinking about. I mean, I've solved hugely technical problems through dreams.
Yeah,
Like,
no, that's a great point. A lot of history's greatest minds did the same thing. Um,
yeah,
you know,
Tesla actually, he used to kind of nap throughout the day and dream of new machines and the operation of machines and stuff like. Of course, that guy was a freak. He could imagine any mechanism operating and test it out in his mind, um, which is pretty phenomenal. I wish I could do it to the kind of level that he did.
wow,
Um,
that's
yeah.
no, that's pretty cool. We should just do an episode on how cool Tesla is because people just don't even fathom the depths of it. Like I
Oh,
don't even.
yeah. I've been a big fan of Tesla for decades. So I've got a lot of resources and information and a lot of love. Um, and fuck Edison. That's all I gotta say.
How did you? There was like a reverb on that.
It was just that powerful. My disdain for Thomas Edison. Man, yeah. um, so have you? What do you know about?
Fuck Edison.
All right. Well, that perfect. So, what do you know about lucid dreaming? And I mean, have you looked into it, like techniques and
uh,
experiences and
very,
things at all?
very little. I mean, to some degree, I've tried to take control of dreams a little more, but I mean, I haven't put like a whole lot of effort into it. Um, but yeah, to some extent, I guess like I maybe have influenced the way like characters in my dream interact with me so that they're not like insulting me and like turning me down and like making fun of
Yeah.
stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, actually, that's a good point because dreams oftentimes, in my experience and in my opinion, are sort of like a practice run for things. You think about something and you're like, what if, or oh, I should have done that or something. So your brain gives you the opportunity to kind of run through it again or to try out something in a controlled, safe environment. Um, and test out a few different ideas. So that's another useful tool that dreams can be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just, for the sake of the viewers, just throw out a few things that I've used to achieve lucid dreaming states and be able to control things. Um, the biggest one, well, I guess one of them is to kind of reinforce the idea that you're going to become aware of the dream before you go to sleep. So while you're getting into bed and going to sleep, you tell yourself that you're going to be aware of the dream. You're going to it's kind of like meditation or a mantra or something. You just kind of build the expectation that at some point in the dream you're going to be aware, and that actually helps quite a lot.
Hmm.
Another thing is the concept, people call it the reality check. So you build a habit of checking things while you're awake, like poking your hand and looking at it. Push your finger into your hand, or look at clocks, or read things and really analyze details. Because one thing, in dreams, your finger will just go right through your hand, as weird as that is.
Huh.
If you look at a watch, the watch time will change every time you look at it. It's going to be different. If you read writing and you look away and look back at it again, it's going to be different. Or it could be like completely incoherent. So you kind of like build this sort of habit of checking the world around you, so that when you're in your dreams, your brain is like, oh, this is what I do. I check things and double check things. And so once you notice those things kind of snap you out. Where if you look at your watch and then you look at it again, it's like a completely different time, or something's weird. It's something that kind of pops you out of your dream a little bit, and at that point you can kind of take control of it.
Huh.
Another thing that really, really helps is keeping a dream journal, because most people forget their dreams throughout the day, things like that, even shortly after you awake. I had this dream journal that was black paper with a white gel pen that I used to write on. So you wake up, the second you wake up, you just write whatever you remember from the dream. And by doing that, you kind of build that sort of memory sort of thing. And somehow that retroactively affects your dreams too. The fact that you're remembering them also kind of engages you with those. And
Oh, that makes sense. I mean, like with my whole to be continued dream or whatever, like I
yeah,
focused on it like the whole day and came right back to it. So,
yeah, exactly. So, that kind of thing definitely helps a lot. So those are just some of the things that helped me. Definitely having the mindset that you will be aware of your dreams helps a lot. It's an active thing, and it's practice. And definitely, if you don't do it for a while, it starts to kind of fade away. So if you want to always control your dreams, you kind of it's an active thing you have to keep up with.
hmm. So I don't know if this is really related either, but like I, it's been a while since I've had one, but I've had these recurrent locales in dreams. Specifically a house, a layout of a house. And the house is in one of two or three different yards. Like the yard will be one of two different ways, depending on the dream. But the interior of the house is pretty much always the same. Like it's a triangular shaped house,
Huh.
with like kind of like a living room on one side, and like a kitchen area, and then like the back end of the triangle is like where the you know um, bedrooms begin and stuff. And it's like a multi-leveled place, and like the higher up you go, the more like secret rooms there are and stuff. Like you can push aside this false wall and there's like a whole other living space. And
Uh, are you dreaming the same dreams that I do? Because
maybe I don't know.
I have the exact same kind of thing.
Huh.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's common. Like dreaming of like just like a bunch of little hidey holes in a just a kind of a creature comfort sort of place. Hmm,
Yeah, it might be.
weird.
And I wonder what causes that. Because I do have the same kind of thing, like weird trap doors that have ladders that go down to secret levels in the
Oh yeah,
house and
yeah. So
basements.
in your like, do you have one in like the attic space that goes up to kind of like a meta attic or something like like the opposite of a sub basement? I guess it would be a meta attic. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. There's usually multiple layers for those kinds of things. Like the basement, there's like a typical basement, and then there's some kind of like hewn out of rock staircase, some ancient staircase leading down to this kind of not necessarily. It looks like a cavern or something under the house. I
Oh,
have that, and the same thing with the attic. There's usually like another level above, and yeah, it's definitely a reoccurring theme all the time.
is the
Like
one in
for
the attic like filled with like antique furniture, kind of dusty, and has a creepy vibe to it?
I sometimes it kind of depends. The structure is usually very similar from dream to dream, but like the
Mm,
contents kind of change, and that what goes on changes around a little bit.
yeah.
Uh, Even the
Uh,
configuration does. I mean, for
then
years, I had a reoccurring dream of this particular house that so the ground floor, the walls were painted white. It was like a normal house. The next level up was the walls were painted yellow, and things were a little bit less cared for, like kind of half forgotten. And then the upper level was blue, and it was like completely dusty, um, like forgotten for decades or something like that, and had a kind of creepy feel to it.
yeah.
So
I,
I haven't had that dream in a long time, but I still do have reoccurring dreams of structures and places like that.
I think maybe the last time I had that dream, uh, I was in the yard and there was a for sale sign with a sold sticker on it. And I remember being like, oh, I can't go in there now. And I
Huh.
don't think I've had the dream since.
Oh, weird.
So that's a little weird too.
That is really strange. Huh. Yeah, I mean, wow, I usually have very strange locations in my dreams, like non-standard. There's the typical house and things like that, but a lot of times I have these dreams of these future landscapes, sometime clearly way in the future. Like just as an example, I had this dream that I was in some kind of, I guess, a house or something, and there was a door, and I stepped out, and all of a sudden I'm like hundreds of feet up, standing in this balcony, looking out, and there's all these huge cylindrical buildings that are, you know, 400 stories tall or something, just massive, and they're in this field that's full of like it looked like some kind of farmland or something like that, but way off in the distance you could see these huge power pylons with massive power lines. It was just like completely massive and epic, and I mean it was beautiful in my dream, but
Hmm.
yeah.
Maybe it was Venus.
It could be, yeah. Just a few, I mean, being on the ground would be a bit of a problem, seeing as
Yeah.
how I was just wearing my normal clothing. Um, but that's another thing that's super reoccurring in my dreams too, is high voltage, like power pylons and power lines and stuff like that. They're always in my dreams, and uh, they're always they feel like there's kind of a sentience there, like they're trying to get me
Hmm.
and surround me and stuff like that. And almost all of those dreams I have to wake up by electrocuting myself because I get trapped. um,
Huh.
yeah, that's the one thing I can't lucid dream my way out of, apparently, is high voltage. It's just I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Achilles heel.
Yeah, exactly.
Watch my dreams.
So many references. Mm. Bonus points to whoever can point out where that came from.
If they're show regulars, I'm sure they can guess just from that.
Yeah, and you might have given a hint earlier too. So, oh, here's something I was thinking about. Do you dream in color?
Not per se. I'm aware of things that are a certain color when it's relevant, but it's not visually a color. And I was going to pose a question to you. Do you see faces?
Yes, but not. They don't maintain their cohesion.
Yeah.
So there might be a moment where I notice a face with clarity, and then the more I try to scrutinize it, it kind of like gets all distorted and weird, and I can't focus on it.
Yeah, but like in the same way, you know who it is even without the face.
Yep.
Like I know what that color is without seeing the color. It's weird. It's like,
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, because it's kind of, yeah, it's happening inside your mind. The same kind of thing, knowing who somebody is.
yeah,
Like,
it's like there's other things that cue you to what its color would be. Just the way, like I had a friend who had face blindness, and she could still recognize who I was by my clothes, the way I talked or whatever, my voice, things like that. Just other things would cue her into who I was.
huh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I usually dream in vibrant color, and I know that's really abnormal.
Uh-huh.
I can recall with clarity so many dreams with where color was a central facet of the dream, and yeah. Oh.
I only dream in infrared.
Nice. Oh yeah.
Bonus points if you can point out that reference.
Should we start up a contest or something? Points are meaningless, though. Of course. Yeah. You just get bragging rights. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good point to end on. Probably we pretty much covered a lot more than lucid dreaming. We talked about dreams in general, and
yeah,
like that.
I think it all ties in pretty well though, because there's like this wonder in how lucid dreaming could, I don't know, like parlay into those realms. Like I'm really interested in the hallucination one. I might look that up to see if anyone's studying that.
Yeah.
To see if there's a way to like lucid dream control hallucinations or whatever. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah, that would be good. And if not, well, there's your future project.
And if not, why not? So if you guys have any lucid dream stories or dream stories in general that you feel like sharing, put them in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and check out the song on the way out too.
Yeah, and I'd be especially interested to hear the weird dreams, like really bizarre kinds of dreams, or like we talked about before, if you had some kind of premonition where you dreamed about something and then it happened. I'd like to hear about that and maybe what your theories are, because I've got all kinds of theories, but we want to keep this video brief, as brief as it can be. So thanks for deep sea diving with us into lucid dreaming and the dream world. And have a good night, everybody.